There was a period during the 1960s when television sets were filled with magical shows involving monsters, Martians, and witches, and certainly one of the most endearing is I Dream of Jeannie. While it was not a favorite of the network during its initial run, the show has managed to stand out as a funny, lighthearted show featuring the exploits of a 2,000-year-old genie and her master, a famous astronaut. Where did the inspiration for the series come from? Bewitched. Yeah, the entire existence came from wanting to copy another show's success. Bewitched was a very popular sitcom on ABC, so NBC asked writer Sidney Sheldon to come up with a show featuring a similar concept. He pitched I Dream of Jeannie, and the rest is history, although humorously, both shows were produced by Screen Gems Television. Of course, with the space race heating up, it was only fitting that Tony Nelson be made an astronaut for NASA, and the pilot immediately set up the concept fairly well. A lot of humor came out of Tony having little need for Jeannie, and the situations that ensue from Jeannie wanting to prove herself useful. That she was smitten with Tony added to the comedy, as Jeannie had quite the jealous streak, thus ruining his chances with other women. I think part of why I Dream of Jeannie still somewhat holds up, even with modern sensibilities, is because Tony did not try to take advantage of Jeannie. Here is a beautiful girl falling to his feet to bring him whatever he desires, and most of the time he just wants his tie straightened. Throughout the series, examples were shown of the dangers of unlimited magic, mostly through Tony's best friend, Roger Healy. In a number of episodes, Roger is able to get Jeannie to grant him wishes, and this ends up getting him into a lot of trouble. There's also an episode where Jeannie makes it look like Tony is extremely wealthy, which particularly fascinates an IRS agent played by Paul Lynde. Jeannie certainly never stopped doing her magic, because then there would not be a show. However, the only magic Tony would often let her do was housework. I Dream of Jeannie was made in the 1960s. What do you expect? The chemistry between Jeannie and Tony was important, and Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman really sold it. Eden managed to portray Jeannie as appropriately sweet and charming, yet was not afraid to show her jealous side. Hagman, meanwhile, captured the frustrations with living with this all-powerful genie who kept making things appear out of thin air, and yet deep down, we know he cared for her. However, the funniest parts of I Dream of Jeannie usually came courtesy of Dr. Bellows, as played by Hayden Rourke. Dr. Bellows would be one of the more frequent witnesses to Jeannie's magical abilities, and often tried to prove to his superiors that something strange was going on. Sidney Sheldon and the writers were able to find a number of clever ways for Tony to get out of a pickle, thus avoiding the show getting too repetitive. Yet there was still a decent amount of sympathy going on with Bellows. He could have easily been written as a villain, only out to get Major Nelson, but Bellows wanted to prove the magical goings-on were more out of a motivation to understand Tony on a psychological level. There were also episodes where Jeannie and Tony would time travel, which allowed for entertaining stories set in the Old West and a pirate ship. There was even an episode where they end up in Napoleon's court, and Tony tries to prevent the Battle of Waterloo from taking place. Though I don't think Doc Brown would take too kindly with Jeannie and Tony being so carefree about changing history. In the third season, the show introduced Jeannie's twin sister, also named Jeannie, and portrayed by Barbara Eden, except she was brunette and evil. Eden did a pretty good job of playing the two sisters, with the series directors utilizing a few tricks of the era to make them interact. Speaking of the special effects, while they certainly seem primitive for the time, and you can even see the strings whenever Jeannie makes something levitate, it adds to the retro charm of the show. Another notable element of the series was the setting of Cocoa Beach, Florida, although clearly filmed in California. Tony's bachelor pad became a memorable setting, evocative of the decade it was made. Eventually, NBC decided that Jeannie and Tony should get married early into the 5th season, much to Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman's chagrin. However, with the interactions and chemistry displayed between the two throughout the show's run, I'm sure viewers who are still tuning into I Dream of Jeannie would have been disappointed had the two not tied the knot by the end. NBC rather abruptly pulled the plug on I Dream of Jeannie at the end of the 5th season, to the point where Larry Hagman found out about the show's cancellation from a studio security guard after returning from a family vacation. However, I Dream of Jeannie did end up finding a lot of new fans and viewers on syndication. 15 years after the show ended, NBC aired a TV movie revival, properly titled I Dream of Jeannie 15 Years Later. Eden, Rourke, and Bill Daly, who played Roger, returned, but Hagman was too busy making some show called Dallas, and wasn't interested in playing Major Nelson again. It was a noble effort of checking in on what the characters were doing, and the decision to make Jeannie a more independent woman made sense with the changing times. The highlights do come from Dr. Bellows' 2 appearances, but the movie also can't escape the kitsch 80s feel at times. However, as much as the overall product is a bit of a mixed bag, it's at least nice to see the characters again. 15 years later did well in the ratings, so a follow-up arrived in 1991 titled I Still Dream of Jeannie, which was far less successful. Hagman again turned down the chance to reprise his character, so the decision was made to have Major Nelson in outer space through the whole movie. In much sadder news, Hayden Rourke had passed away, so Dr. Bellows was a no-show too. So this movie only has Barbara Eden and Bill Daly, and it just has trouble recapturing that same magic. Jeannie was written as a much more naive character, undoing the character progression seen in the previous movie, and the plot involved her trying to find a new master for convoluted reasons. There's also an odd kidnapping plot involving her son, and the movie ends on an underwhelming note for what would ultimately be the last time we would see Eden as Jeannie. Well, not counting this Lexus commercial.
Never do. Whoa.
Introducing the first luxury SUV that doesn't ride like a truck. The RX 300, like no other vehicle or value on Earth.
Well, hello there.
At your Lexus dealer.
In the mid-2000s, there were plans to make a big-screen I Dream of Jeannie movie with Kate Hudson in the title role, but the box office failure of the Bewitched movie seemingly put an end to that. I think there is potential in a modern take on I Dream of Jeannie, as it is a fun concept. My ideal casting for a movie would probably be Jennifer Lawrence as Jeannie, as she does share a bit of a resemblance to Barbara Eden, and Bill Hader as Major Nelson. Hire somebody like Kay Cannon to direct and write it, and I think you would have a hit on your hands, Sony. Think about it. Either way, I Dream of Jeannie still stands as a delightful piece of 60s television history, with charming leads, funny scripts, and let's be honest, a theme song that will stay in your head for years. See you next time.